Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of CNF Talks, the series in which we interview speakers at our upcoming events. And it's my great pleasure today to be welcoming Ezechi Britton, who's the CEO of the Centre for Finance, Innovation and Technology. And Ezechi will be speaking at the AI and Technology Summit, which is being held on the 21st of May at Guildhall, as part of City Week 2024. Ezechi, welcome.
Thank you, Maurice. Absolute pleasure to be here, and feel free to call me Ez.
Okay, shall do. Let's turn to our first question. Please could you explain the objectives of the Open Finance Task Force chaired by CFIT, which was set up, I believe, earlier this week? How will you measure its success, and what are the likely use cases that it will try to support? And how can companies be further encouraged to share their data?
So this Monday, we were delighted that the Economic Secretary to the Treasury, Bir Mafalami, announced a new industry-led task force to be chaired by CFIT that will aim to unlock the full potential of open finance. And the task force will build on a number of the key recommendations that were set out in our blueprint report that we published in February 2024 as the priority next steps for driving forward open finance. And this included prioritizing more use cases for open finance, identifying data sets to be unlocked and the APIs needed to be created in order to facilitate better SME finance availability, and identifying commercially viable approaches to incentivize businesses to securely share their financial data in order to prepare the next stage of work to take open finance forwards in the UK.
Yeah. So in terms of that, you mentioned the Khalifa review, which is obviously a groundbreaking report. Are there any recommendations from the review that are not being taken forward by the task force? And if so, why is that?
So, well, the Khalifa review identified challenges across a wide range of areas impacting the UK fintech sector, including funding, skills and talent, coordination, trade and regulation. But we chose open finance as the subject of our first industry-wide coalition within which we brought together 60 organisations from across financial services, partly on the recommendation of the Khalifa review, because it cuts across a number of these topics, such as coordination, regulation and trade, but it is only one challenge facing the UK fintech sector. There are many others, some of which we'll also turn our attention to in the future. This is only our first coalition. Inevitably, the task force that we're driving forwards cannot and should not look to address every aspect of the Khalifa review. Instead, it has clearly defined brief to take forward three of the key recommendations that CFIT made in our blueprint report on open finance. And two of the other recommendations are being taken forwards by the announcement made by CFIT this morning concerning the further development of our consumer and SME proofs of concept.
Okay. Fantastic. And just for the purposes of the better understanding of our listeners to this interview, could you just explain what you mean by open finance, just to take a step backwards?
So that's a really good question. I mean, when we look at open banking, open finance, and then smart data, really it's that progression from just my banking data that is being made available to other services with my permission, my consent, and my control, in order to create better outcomes for me as the consumer or as the business. And to date, open banking has been focused very much on account data and credit card transaction data. Going forwards, open finance is about taking into account that wider array of financial information. That could be information about my investments, about my pensions. It could be about my buy now, pay later transactions, for example. It could be my VAT submissions to HMRC. It could be my company's house data. So it's all that information about you and your business that makes up that wider world of financial data that is around you. And unlocking this is about giving you more optionality, more personalized outcomes that better support you in your financial goals.
So it's really the full range of financial activities that consumers and SMEs might undertake. I suppose at the heart of this is that there has to be a degree of trust. There has to be a good relationship between fintech startups and incumbent financial institutions. Has that degree of trust evolved? Is it now in a good place since open banking first started? Is it now in a better place?
When we talk about trust, it's really clear. It's important that when we look at open banking, what's been put in place are clear trust frameworks and consent frameworks to manage that sharing of information from a one-to-one
Yeah.
perspective. And I think the progress that the OBL, so Open Banking Limited, has seen in regards to the open banking accounts being set up is a really great example of how that trust is building and that progress is accelerating. So much so that even HMRC have engaged with open banking. They had a procurement with EcoSpend a few years ago through which you could then pay your HMRC payments directly from an account-to-account mechanism. So I think what we've seen is that open banking has been an absolute success in the UK, and that is completely down to the trust that the industry has built with the consumer. As we start to look forwards to open finance, it's very clear that we need to continue to work on this because what will happen as we're starting to unlock more and more data sets is that you get a one-to-many situation whereby rather than just saying, in order to gain access to this service, I'm prepared to give you access to my bank account. We're now in a world where we'll be saying, in order to gain access to this service or product, I'm willing to share with you access to my HMRC information, my company's house data, my BNPL data, my local tax information. That starts to become quite a difficult experience for the user. And if we're to maintain that trust, it's absolutely critical that we explore how we keep that as painless for the user as possible, whilst ensuring that that end user stays in control of that process.
Yeah, I mean, you touch on there that sort of other element of trust, the trust between the consumer and the provider, the fintech or technology provider of new services. And has that, so I'm presumably that there's been a learning curve, and I would assume that consumers were a bit reticent to start off with, but they've been won over. Has that been evidenced in the number of consumers using open banking stroke open finance applications? But how has that grown since inception?
Unfortunately, I don't have the exact numbers to hand, but everything I've seen and everything I've heard from the OBL team and the rest who really shepherd open banking in the UK has shown that those numbers are increasing. We're definitely seeing it increasing in the UK. We've seen it increase in the US. We're seeing it increase globally. So it's absolutely clear that people are increasingly having that habit of saying, you know, I need to share this information in order to gain access to this product. And by doing so, I get a better outcome. And what is absolutely critical is the principles behind this, right? Is that we have to show the end user that by doing this, you will get a more suitable, personalized outcome for you, a better outcome for you, which in some cases might not necessarily mean you gain access to that product. Right? It may be that you get access to a more suitable product for you. And this is where that personalization, that customization of data, of services based upon that data sharing becomes absolutely critical.
Fantastic. I mean, that's all very, very positive. Turning to another issue, that leaving aside more specific area of open banking and open finance, there's been a lot of discussion in the press recently about scaling up fintechs. What have been the barriers, particularly in relation to, say, the US? What have been the barriers to scaling up companies in the UK? And do you think the various initiatives and attempts at policy changes are the right answer? Do you think we're getting there?
Well, the UK fintech sector really benefits from London's status as a global financial centre and the sophisticated financial services ecosystem across the UK, access to deep private funding markets, technology talent produced by world-class universities, and an amenable regulatory environment. However, data fragmentation really undermines the high quality of the products and services delivered by UK fintech companies. And there is the appetite and capability to lend more, but lack of access to data currently prevents that. And
Yeah.
that's not just from the underwriting process, but also discovery process. So
Mm.
one aspect of increasing data sharing is ensuring that businesses have lenders have the information they need to lend appropriately. But then on the other side, it's that those businesses that need access to those products can actually find the right products, and it's same for the
Mm.
consumer. So
Mm.
it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
And this is a major area in which open finance can make a real difference. It would enable the sharing of data from multiple sources, which will provide lenders with a more comprehensive view of a
Mm.
consumer's or an SME's
Mm.
financial profile and health. And our
Mm.
mission as an organization is therefore to bring industry, academia, regulators, and policymakers together
Yeah.
to unlock this next phase of financial innovation, which will take time to really implement sustainably.
Mm. Well, it's good to know that the UK is blazing a trail on this. Other countries are following it in our path. So, unfortunately, we've run out of time now, Liz, but I'd just like to say to our viewers, I very much hope you'll be able to join us at the AI and Technology Summit on the 21st of May at Guildhall, London, to hear more on this and other related topics around AI and technology in financial services. More information available on our website, www.cityweekuk.com. So very much hope to see you there. Ez, thank you very much indeed for sharing those thoughts.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.